There we go.
Recording in progress.
All right, good evening. It is 7:01 p.m. on Thursday, June 13th, and I'm calling the Finance Committee meeting to order. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. This meeting will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link attached to the agenda on the town website. From a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 881-3627-4720. This agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed, in fact, may be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements from the committee this evening? Nothing, Mr. Passios?
No.
Okay. The only announcement that I have is if you haven't seen the most recent select board meetings or school committee meetings, we are currently going to be without a town manager starting on April 4th, her last day. August 4th, thank you. She told us that she would stay on for another 6 months. On August 4th of this year, her last day is August 3rd. So we are going to be missing her with that regard, but there will be a search committee put together, which we'll talk about this evening. And that's all I have with that one. Are there any public comments from the public this evening? Seeing none, any public comment from the committee? Nope. Fantastic. Town manager's report. Madam Town Manager?
Good evening.
Hi there.
Hi. Driving, but I'll go off memory for my last couple of reports, because I don't think we have met since June, beginning of June. So the OPM contract was awarded for Marshall Park. That is, will take services through the completion of the park grant and into that project, then those services would be amended to cover that as well. We received notification from the state that due to FEMA's denial for the public assistance going to cities and towns for funding for the September storms, that they would be issuing the $5 million that they set aside in the supplemental budget in the fall to the affected cities and towns. We received 30,000 of that $5 million. And then tax bills are being worked on. Starting tomorrow. That will include the override amount. So,
Could you repeat that last part about the tax bills? We're having a hard time hearing you.
the estimated impact. So taxpayers can expect fiscal 25 preliminary bills for first and second quarter of fiscal 25 are
Push it off.
starting
later.
tomorrow.
She's off the
To go on
road.
the override.
I think, Madam Town Manager, we are going to have to hold off for
We're
now.
still
until
having
you
a hard
have-
time hearing me.
We can't hear you at all, and you're breaking up quite badly. I think what
Okay.
I think what
I'll
we'll
hold on
do,
until I am a place.
that sounds great. Just raise a hand whenever you get somewhere with better signal, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, moving along. Finance Director report. Ezekiel, do we have anything for this evening?
I don't have a report currently. You should be receiving the quarter three financials soon. I'm just finishing up reconciliations and other adjustments, but that should be coming up. I don't have a date as of yet.
Anybody?
I can't hear him.
Is there anything we can do in the booth? We're having a really hard time hearing anybody on Zoom. If you want to try that again, Ezekiel, we really couldn't hear you at all.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
How about now?
That's better.
Oh, I have to apparently lean right on top of the laptop. But I am going to be submitted the quarterly financials for Q3 soon. I don't have a date as of yet. Wrapping up last minute adjustments and reconciliations. Just there's timing because we're at the end of the fiscal year as well. So there's a lot going on. But that should be coming within the next couple of weeks.
In the next 4 weeks, is that what you said?
Next couple of weeks.
Next
about
couple of
3
weeks,
or 4.
okay.
Yeah.
That was going to be one of my questions this evening, because we're coming up on the end of quarter four, and we haven't seen anything on Q3. Q2 had some warning flags that flew up, and it would be nice to know sooner rather than later what Q3 looked like.
All right, thank you very much, Ezekiel. We look forward to seeing that as soon as it's completed.
Thank you.
One thing I might advise, I don't know if town manager can hear or IT or someone, but if town employees are gonna call in through Zoom, maybe we can get them good speaker, those little pucks, speakerphones, so that we can hear better. Usually the computer microphones are awful, so if you invest $60 in a little USB microphone speaker, that makes it a lot easier to hear.
I agree. It would be nice. All right, let's move on down to our new business. We just have a couple of things to go over this evening. First off is the Town Manager Search Committee representative. So the town moderator is responsible for chairing a committee or heading up a committee to replace the town manager. And he has reached out to me actually today saying that he wants to get started sooner rather than later. That committee needs to have a finance committee member representing the finance committee for that search portion. This is separate from the current search for an interim town manager, which is done exclusively through the select board. So they are, and actually through the assistant town manager as well, the HR director. So that is going to be held separately and hopefully done much quicker versus the actual search for a permanent town, or at least a more permanent town manager.
One question I had, because I did watch a select board meeting where they talked about this, is, does this committee develop a slate of candidates to be interviewed by the select board, or do they come up with an individual that is to be ratified by the select board?
If I remember correctly, it's not worded clearly as to how many they bring forward to the Board of Selectmen, but it more or less insinuates more than one. But they can, the select board, once it gets to that point, can only choose from those names brought forward.
So it sets up the slate of candidates.
Yep.
So do we know what, is it going to be like somebody from the select board, somebody from the finance committee, kind of like the budget task force they were talking about at the select board on Tuesday? Or is it going to be smaller group?
I believe it's, I have to check.
Schools has someone, right?
Yeah, it's,
Cool, right.
You
Yes.
you appointed someone?
It's 5 members total.
Peter.
Liz Jay.
So it must be the moderator, FinCom, it's Tom Alonso, Peter Beardmore, and I think Planning Board was the other one.
correct. And they have a tentative, Mr. Brenner, I believe, is tentatively the member for that, for the planning board. But I understand that they also did not have a full quorum, so that may change depending upon their vote at the next meeting. But I have no idea as to how involved or how busy it's going to be. I'm sure it's something that will pick up speed as they get more and more applications coming through.
And on the Board of Selectmen, unless I missed it in the conversation, they're going to have Julie Belleville. Oh, no.
That's for the
I'm sorry,
interim.
that's the other.
Right,
that's the other
right.
group. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is, to my knowledge, this hasn't been established unless it's already in the charter or the bylaws, how it has to go for applications. Whether it goes through the town, assistant town manager, or whether it goes directly to the town moderator, I'm not sure. That was something that would probably all be fleshed out.
Well, we did it for Heather, right? Or did we change the charter in this area after that?
I don't know, I wasn't here 7.5 years ago.
7 years, we haven't changed that part of the charter in 7 years.
Okay.
Definitely not. Unless there's somebody really passionate that wants to be on that committee, I'm willing to do it. I have the bandwidth. My preference would be that somebody else steps up, but if not, I'm willing to do it.
I'd be willing to do it as well, or I think Evan would be appropriate depending upon.
I agree with that statement.
I would be willing to do either A or B, but I'm not willing to do both. In terms of, so the B is the budget task force discussion.
I think you'd be better on the budget, because they were talking about number crunching and things like that, and you've already shown that that's something you not only do well, but like to do and have the capacity, so that might be I mean, you would fit either way, but I think if you had to pick one, I'd suggest that one.
I like spreadsheets way more than interviewing people.
The only other side to that is that that's going to be a
Circles, arrows, and diagrams.
Yeah.
Numbers are easier than people sometimes.
Well, it depends. The budget task force is potentially 4 to 5 months, maybe a year.
That's the way it's starting out.
Right. We'll see if it has to get going, first of all. That's the other issue. I mean, I would be happy to nominate Chris for, if you're wanting to step up for it.
Yeah, I'm willing to do it. I certainly have
I'll second that.
Okay. Is anyone else wanting to do the town manager search?
No.
All right.
It's the
Do we vote?
interim,
We do, I just wanted to write it down. What's that, Jay?
the interim town manager.
No, this is the
This is
permanent.
The town manager.
So the interim town manager is being done exclusively by the select board with applications coming through the assistant town manager first, and they have full discretion as to who they hire for that. This is for the permanent replacement of Heather, which still is ultimately up to the select board, but goes to this committee first. Not this specific committee, but the town manager search committee.
Screening committee.
All right, so motion has been made and seconded to nominate Chris Menard for the town manager search committee. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you, Mr. Bernard.
Sounds like the capital plan committee.
I'm sure the town moderator has already texted you at this point.
He's not mad at me from town meeting.
He might be.
Okay.
All right, next up is the budget task force discussion. So this, again, I don't know if anyone watched the select board meeting on Tuesday or the school committee meeting on Wednesday. I watched both of them. At this point, there is not an official vote to start a budget task force from the select board. So it currently does not exist. Select person Emke did go through a presentation, which I forwarded to the committee earlier today, that outlines a couple different towns' processes, as well as the makeup in terms of number of members and how often they're doing these as well. Currently, I believe she's looking to follow in the footsteps of Westford, who just recently did theirs and I think they just put forward an override of like $8 million. So much needed task force decision with that one. And I believe their committee is 9 members strong, 7 from elected and appointed officials and 2 members at large from the public. So there was some discussion as to whether or not it should just be made up of elected or appointed members of the town, or whether it should include members of the public as well. Regardless of what they land on, whether it's 7 people, 9 people, 5 people, they do want to have someone from the finance committee on that task force for sure. They're also looking to have someone from the school committee. They're looking to have the superintendent of schools, as well as the business director that is starting July 1st. The new business director for the schools is starting July 1st. And in addition, a select board member and a planning board member, I believe, as well. So they discussed as well when they could meet, and it looks like Mondays are going to be the only day that works, because that's all that's left, because select board meets on Tuesdays, school committee meets on Wednesdays, and we meet on Thursdays. So that leaves Monday evenings. So the select board did not, or chose not to vote on it on Tuesday. The school committee elected to table the discussion as well until they had a little bit more information. Personally, I think if it's going to happen, it's better to be prepared than to be the reason why they have to wait another week or two.
That's because that's how we do it.
I know Renee is extremely anxious to get going with this.
Yeah, I mean, they needed a charge. They didn't forgot about that, so.
Yep.
Yeah, my opinion is that, we can vote on this contingent on the fact that we have a position on it, and then I think regardless of the charge and the makeup, I'm in agreement with what Tom said, that, you're, as chair and, as being very analytical, and you'd be a great member for it.
Is there anyone else that would like to do this?
No.
Anybody at all?
No.
Okay. Are we willing to take a vote on it this evening, just so we at least have something we can pass forward to? Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we, to nominate Evan as a member of the Budget Task Force discussion, so long as, or Budget Task Force Committee, or whatever name is chosen, given that there is in fact a single seat on it for Finance Committee.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Well, Ms. Emke has one member at least. Should be happy to know.
So she needs to be selected to the committee also somehow, doesn't she?
It doesn't have to be. I mean,
When they
it's,
create it, she's automatically the overseer?
I don't think so. I think it's just she wants to vote in a committee, a task force, but I don't think that automatically puts her on the force, or whatever you want to call it, the committee, commission.
Would be surprised if it's not her.
I agree. I think it would be foolish not to have her on there, but I don't know if she actually even has the bandwidth to do it. She may not.
Well, as I said in another meeting this week, not doing it just forces more bandwidth down the road again. I mean,
It's true.
a lot of us were spending 12 to 20 hours a week going to meetings through the winter because we didn't have a committee like this, so
Getting fully compensated, right?
I earned every nickel.
Attaboy.
One last thing, I also forwarded a response from the town manager to everyone on the committee this morning. I asked her about the possibility of a finance committee being an appointed committee and what authority we have to actually create a subcommittee of our own as a budget task force, should the select board choose not to do that. And in traditional town council fashion, he effectively said no, but then he ended it with, but towns do it anyway. So it's not really something that's done because we are and I wasn't aware of this entirely, but we are actually charged by the select board to do our tasks, so therefore it's difficult for us to then charge someone else to
We're
do
not
another
charged
task.
by the select board.
And that was
We're
my
charged by
thought.
the charter and by mass general law.
Which was my thought as
By the
well.
legislature, so
I had difficulty reading that as well. I didn't really like that portion of the email.
Do we think that, it sounded pretty clear to
And
me.
we're not appointed by by the select board, we're appointed by the finance committee appointing,
Correct.
so.
Which is
I
chaired by
agree,
the moderator.
We're governed by
And who
the
appoints
charter, not anybody else.
It's the town moderator, it's a representative of the select board, and a representative of the school committee.
Yeah, 3 members.
So, 3 elected people, 2 of whom don't report to the select board.
Elected or appointed?
Elected.
Moderator.
Well, they're appointed from their respective committees and boards.
yeah.
But the charter requires a member of the select board, a member of the school committee, and the town moderator.
Well, to me, I listened to the select board meeting on Tuesday, and I didn't see any kind of, I mean, they want to do it right, they want to do it quickly, but I didn't see any, I don't want to do it in the discussion, so hopefully.
Yes, I
Be an
did
issue.
say that.
So I don't want to or misquote town council. So what he specifically said was, there is also an inherent authority of the selectmen to create and appoint committees who serve under the selectmen. Usually these committees handle a particular function or area and study it, advising the selectmen on their findings. It is important for members of those committees to understand that it is the Board of Selectmen that makes the ultimate decision. In that sense, a committee established by the selectmen is different than a committee established by say by statute, charter, or bylaws, which is what we are. We are a committee by statute, charter, and bylaw.
Right.
So effectively, we don't have to follow this. So even though he did say it's not really something we do, we could, in essence, create one ourselves. So.
Yeah, well,
I think I've also mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it publicly, but there's nothing stopping us from inviting some department heads to our meeting and having an ongoing discussion as old business for historical trends and whatnot, and making our own sort of ad hoc, not named budget task force.
I think the path the town is on is the right path, so let's
I agree.
just get behind it.
I agree, 100%. I'm in full support of it going through the select board, but at the off chance that the select board chooses not to do it, I would like to ensure that it doesn't die right there. Because I think it is a necessary function that the town needs. All right, any other discussion on the task force for this evening? Excellent. Meeting with Representative Scarsdale, the 1st Middlesex District, and DESI to discuss the school budget issues. So this one is a little interesting. This is an email that came from Ms. Scarsdale, which I believe I forwarded to the committee a day or two ago, that she sent out to a number of the members of her district, town managers or moderators, select board chairs, school committee chairs, finance committee chairs, where she wants to have a meeting with representatives from each of those groups in person with DESI there to specifically talk about school budget issues. I think one of her main topics is ideally we have regional transit, that there's a regional transportation that's funded by the state, but there is no rural transportation that's funded by the state. So that's one of her asks, I believe. She threw out a couple of dates for a 2-ish hour meeting. Which I have to pull up again. So July 12th or July 19th, she put in a 9 to 11 or a 1 to 3 block. So those days are Fridays. I think it's a good start, at least for what Mr. Menard has been pushing for. Our delegation actually might be starting to listen and working with us a little bit.
Yeah,
But
perhaps it leads to even like a caucus of similar towns so that we can get a voting block to push for our issues.
yeah, her top topics, or her 5 topics, are regional school transportation, which affects 5 of her 6 towns, minimum required contributions, the hold harmless issue with Chapter 70, which is 2/3 of towns or 2/3 of districts in Massachusetts this year, the effectiveness of the foundation formula in meeting towns' needs, and inflation and the 4.5% cap on the Student Opportunity Act, which severely impacted our towns over the last few years of 7 to 8% inflation. So I'm actually quite optimistic about this. I think it's the first time we've had a representative take charge and say they're going to do something and actually schedule something. So she's asking for basically someone who is willing to kind of sit in on that meeting. Again, I don't think it has to be the chair. I think it can be anyone from the committee. I don't know what people's availabilities are on Fridays between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. I know I'm at work.
So I can be available on the 19th between those times.
Okay. And I suppose what we could do is,
Is it just one person? Is that what she's asking for?
she didn't, I don't believe she specifically said.
For whatever it's worth, I think if there were more than one of us, it might be helpful.
Yeah, she said, I have tried to include major stakeholders on this list. If you feel someone integral to this conversation is missing, please let me know and I will forward an invitation on to them. I take that to mean all 7 of us could go. I would ideally like to have at least whichever day and time she's chosen that works for more people. I'd like to at least have someone there. I as well can make the 19th work, but I can't make the 12th work.
I'm off on the 12th, as of now. But what were the other days? They were both?
The 19th, both Fridays.
Oh, okay, and it was just 2 different times?
Yep. Is anyone else available on Friday, July 12th?
I am.
I am for both days.
Okay. Dave, Jay? No?
No.
Okay.
Do we have a meeting between now and then?
We do. Yeah, we have one on the 27th. And we would have one on the 11th as well.
We may want to consider having like a little prepared statement.
Yep.
We may want to even consider trying to get a prepared statement across the town. All three boards that were mentioned on this rally behind.
Well, hopefully we get an agenda before the 11th of July, so that we can at least, they gave us a few topics, but at least we can see what it is, and then we can have a discussion about what, based on the topics that she wants to talk about. And maybe we might have a few that maybe isn't on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sure. If we were to do a prepared statement, I mean, I believe that should probably be done by the school committee initially.
Yeah, it would.
I would
yeah.
think it would need to be, it would carry more weight if it's drafted by the school committee and then signed off on the finance committee and
Or
select board.
finance, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, we could also write it in concert.
I think it should be collaborative between both.
I agree. It should be collaborative.
Ms. Archambault, as the vice chair. No. Nope, as the clerk. As the clerk, you've been demoted and demoted.
Wait, who's chair?
Brian, Mr. Leighton is now the chair, and Mr. Scombrini is the vice chair.
Okay.
That's, Ms. Archambault is now our representative, is our liaison.
And she's still my neighbor.
That's as far as you know. Is that something you think we could probably get on the school committee agenda?
I can request to Mr. Leighton to put
Okay.
it on. We only have a meeting scheduled on June 26th,
Okay.
and it's very full. But I think it's important, I would ask you.
Even if it's not, I don't know, did you nominate someone to be at this meeting, or?
We left it as, we will figure out later who can cover it.
Okay.
That's how we left it.
Sort of the same way we are.
Yeah, so maybe even if you and Brian and Caesar as chairs, outside of this meeting, I think you all know our sentiments on it. And then if we can review it as a committee, then that's good, but otherwise,
Well, we would theoretically have the 27th and the 11th, so we do have technically 2 meetings that we could review.
yeah. I mean, there's a holiday weekend there too, so it may be difficult to,
True. I mean, ideally, I'd like to not give it to Ms. Scarsdale the night before the meeting if it's on the 12th. If it's on the 19th, I think we could make it work with, something finalized on the 11th, or that week of the 11th. But yes, I'll reach out to Brian and Caesar and see what we can come up with.
I think the power of it is that you hand out a piece of paper and they walk away with a piece of paper, not their memory and what they took notes on.
Agreed.
And any facts and data that come along with it is even more powerful, I think.
Okay. So, I will try to have then something for the committee to look over, then I'll send out before our next meeting at the end of the month, with any luck.
Like one example, just bus fees, right? If we see what are bus fees done over that period.
I have a graph of that.
Yep.
It's not pretty. And it's getting renegotiated this year, which is going to make it even worse. Okay. Any other discussion on that meeting for now? All right. Moving on, before we move on to the minutes, Ms. Lemieux, are you in a better spot. I know you were going to sign off after the town manager report.
In a secure location now. Can you hear me better?
A little bit better, yes.
Okay. Yes, so I can go right into report if you would like.
That would be great.
I don't know if you heard that first part when I said the OPM services contract that's been executed, that is for Marshall Park, and that will cover services through the park grant, which is through next fiscal year. And if there's additional funding for other components of that project, that's when, at that point, it would be amended.
That covers through fiscal year '25?
Correct, through the park grant.
Okay.
That project, or that portion of the project.
Okay.
Also, we received notice from the governor's office about that FEMA approved their appeal request for disaster declaration for damage caused to Lunenburg and other communities, but this was limited to individual assistance for residents and businesses, and the public assistance was confirmed denied. So we heard from the governor's office after that upholding of that denial, that they were going to release the $5 million that they set aside in the supplemental budget in the fall to the affected communities. And our portion is $30,000. And this is based on a combination of things, including storm-related expenses, municipality size, and the amount of infrastructure-related costs. And we should be receiving those funds shortly. Representative Scarsdale got the earmark for the Milo Advanced Training Simulation System. That was for the police department. That was a project that didn't make the cut on the capital plan. And that is $33,910. So we will see if that makes it through to the final budget, state budget, which I spoke with the senator yesterday, and it's not likely that it will be, everything be wrapped up by the end of June, but definitely, obviously, by the end of July. So, but it's still looking positive for the local aid number that's in there, and per pupil expenditure for minimum aid communities. The repairs to the public safety building siding were completed. That was all covered through insurance. That was due to that windstorm we had in December. Completely took off the whole right side on the fire apparatus portion of the building. So that project, that's complete. We are working on first and second fiscal 25 tax bills, and that's process is going to start tomorrow. And that will include the override. I think that's the portion you couldn't hear me say. So that will be a portion of the override amounts. Obviously, it's an estimated amount until the tax rate is set in the fall, and then actual tax bills will make those adjustments. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the town manager?
One question I have is with respect to the services for grant writing, when do we think that that would be available to the town?
That, I think a process needs to be put in place because there are probably going to be many people that are interested in receiving funding from that source. And so I think a process needs to be established. So it's not going to all one, say, department or committee, that it's kind of proportional out to everyone, so it's balanced.
But you have,
I don't have anything in place right now.
you don't have anything what?
In place right now.
Right, so if we had a
for
need for it right
process.
now, we couldn't sign a purchase order or anything for it, right?
Correct. Soon, purchase orders can be established shortly, but
Do you have, is there a list of like preferred entities?
I do have some contacts for grant writing firms, so you could use those as, but it will all depend on the type of grant services that whatever department or committee is looking for.
Good.
Who is planning on putting together that procedure?
I can attempt to do it before I leave, but I'm not going to promise that I can get that done. So it might have to be handed off.
Would it be helpful to have someone from the finance committee work with you to put that together, just to kind of take it off of your plate for the last month or so?
If there's someone willing to, I can also reach out to my association and see if there's any other community has done something similar.
Okay. Ms. Tavares is raising her hand.
I'd be happy to work with you.
Okay, great, thank you.
I do like the idea if there's another town that uses this effectively, stealing shamelessly on their policies and procedures.
It's not stealing, it's public record.
Shamelessly borrowing. Okay. That's great. Yeah, I think the sooner we can get that put together, the sooner we can start utilizing it, since it's been approved.
Yeah, one of the reasons I asked was actually capital planning related is, you know, maybe finding a way to better identify projects that are able to be funded by grants. So where in the process might we engage in some services to look at the lists and help us assess that? So,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it would probably be very helpful to have someone from whichever firm we go with, or if we go with a main firm or larger firm, to attend the capital planning meeting, or at least be in connection with the capital planning chair, or have discussion with them.
yeah, or take the 5-year plan and advise how we might
Right.
be able to maximize grants.
That is a good idea. Okay, so I would imagine Ms. Tavares will probably reach out to Ms. Lemieux in the next few days.
I will. I'll send you my availability tomorrow, actually, for the next few weeks, and then I'll work around what's good for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for us tonight, Ms. Lemieux?
I do not. Thank
Okay.
you.
Enjoy the peace and quiet then.
Okay, have a good night.
Thanks, you too. All right, last up for new business is our list of missing minutes, which Danielle was kind enough to put together for us, which is pretty long.
Yeah, so I had responded to that email to just you and her. I didn't hear back. One thing that I've heard is that sometimes if you ask specifically for minutes, the town clerk's office somehow finds them.
Okay.
So I didn't know if they had done one more scrub against that list. And then the second question I have relative to that list is there actually a time limit, as, you know, some of those go back 11 years.
Right.
Is there a time limit associated with when we would have to, yes.
Statute of limitations, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. I did talk to Joe in PAC as well and asked if she had access to any of them, and the recommendation was just to search on the PAC YouTube channel for Finn specifically, and that should grab everything. So I passed that on to Danielle. I don't know if she's had a chance to go through them that way, but
I thought her email stated that she did find some with YouTube videos.
she found some, yes, but I don't know if she was specifically just searching for anything related to FinCom or if she was just scrolling through. I don't know what her search parameters were. At this point, it's a large number. I think the oldest one is March 7th of 2013.
I guess the other question is, if we do validate that there was in fact a meeting, and we do not have any idea of what was said, do we just pass minutes that say something to that effect, so that everything is kind of checked the box and we're as compliant as possible?
And who's gonna, if this goes back to 3-4 years ago, who's gonna vote to approve the minutes? I mean, many of us weren't at the meeting, so we wouldn't be able to.
You don't have to be at a meeting to vote on minutes. A lot of people don't feel comfortable, but you do not need to be at the meeting. So I think we would have to, as a board, agree that, you know, Danielle's recollection or recalling what was on the videos is in fact the case. But Jay, you've been on for like 20 years, haven't you?
We'll just have him. We'll all abstain and he can approve.
Exactly.
Passes 1-0.
And you remember exactly what happened on August 16th of 2016 in that meeting? Okay, I'll reach out to the clerk's office then and ask those questions and follow up with Danielle on that one, just so we have some type of closure.
Seems like a lot.
Beyond that, there's really not much else we can do with old minutes for this point.
Just as we do have minutes on here, Jay did have the suggestion that we always append the material that was, so we may want to pass that on to Danielle and have a process for doing that.
Okay.
I think that's a good suggestion.
I agree. That's probably on me, because I think I'll need to send her any of the any of the data that was, or any of the presentations or whatnot. I don't know if that's always just available. Okay. Old business. I have none. Does anybody else have any old business they want to discuss? Fantastic. We're going to get out of here before 8.
Oh, geez, you just jinxed us.
No, I'm not. Minutes.
You have one, right?
We have one set in the shared point.
I did read it.
Did as well, but I can't remember what they're from. Minutes and agenda in review. From May 23rd. Has everyone had a chance to read it, or at least 4 of us?
I read them.
I read them.
Okay. Anyone have any issues with anything?
No.
Okay. The only issue that I have is we need to call, I don't think we're board members. At the top, it's listed as board members, but,
There's times I'm bored.
what's that?
There is times I'm bored.
Fair enough. I will happily entertain a motion for these minutes then.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of May 23rd, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have approved the minutes of the 23rd of May. Actually pretty caught up at this point, at least for the new ones. All right, committee reports. Does anybody have any committee reports to report?
I do. As it relates to parks, Anna Lockwood did resign from parks. So I guess they're down a member. I don't think they've had any meetings since our last meeting that needs to be talked about. And then we had our first capital planning committee meeting that focuses on the 5-year plan. I guess some members felt that with all the upheaval, it may be hard to come up with a 5-year plan. I think with all the upheaval, it reinforces the need to focus on a 5-year plan. And so maybe we're not 100% aligned on that and the logistics on how to do it, but we still have department heads and that sort of thing. So I think it's critically important. I also, my view is that I made, is that DPW and the both facilities is probably the big ones we should start on for the 5-year plan. I do think, police and fire and some of the others are in better shape to begin with. They have pretty good 5-year plans anyways. And to me, there is a tie-in on the 5-year capital plan to the 5-year operating plan. Because it only makes sense to buy something if you have the ability to actually utilize it. So I kind of push for a more comprehensive look on things, and maybe it's now a tie-in between capital planning committee and the budget task force, but I'd like to see ultimately some pretty good tie-in between those things. And I'd like to see tools in place to kind of help us through that process, that historical look and projections and, maybe even the ability to Monte Carlo things and put in assumptions would be really powerful. But that was my take. Dave, you were there as well. I don't know if you have anything to add from that. Just as
No, you covered that part of it pretty good. Just don't forget to mention the open seat.
Thank you. There is going to be, the at-large seat is up this year, and the member will not be doing it. So there is an at-large seat available. We had a lot of people that dipped their toe in town politics this past year. They may be good candidates to go a little further into the pool through the capital planning committee. The commitment is now a little longer. The heavy commitment is towards the end of the year, through the fall and winter months, where we hear the department requests and rank them and kind of go through that process with a due out that's due, I think, January 1st or the end of December. But we are looking at the 5-year plan portion of this as well. So if you're kind of interested in where we're spending our capital monies, it's a good board to get some experience on, and see if you actually like being on this side of the table.
What days do they meet?
We don't have a set date. However, we meet on Thursdays, schools meets on Wednesdays, and, well, this gets really hard because planning committee meets on Mondays, and the select board on Tuesdays. So I know historically they met like 6 o'clock on Tuesdays right before select board, but we're kind of winging it, maybe on the off days. So I don't think we have a set rhythm right yet.
So anyone interested, please fill out a volunteer form on the town website. They're easy to find. Any other?
Green Communities has met since we met last. I don't know if I announced, I don't remember the timing on it, but we backed out of the spring grant round at the last minute because of the yield in grant funding that would be available to the sewer project as presented. Turned out it was going to be a minuscule amount. So if we put the application in April, it would have been in the $45,000 to $50,000 range and would have forced us to wait until a year from then. So it would be next April before we could reapply for another grant round. So we chose to pull the application, and we're already met and talked about what we plan to do through the summer to be well ahead of the application date for the fall, and focusing on possibly one large project with some small supplemental ones to fill in the dollar amounts. And we may still end up being able to fund a couple of the conversions at the pumping stations, but it'd be very selective because of the fact that it turns out that they are rather efficient already. So the return on investment was so long that it didn't make sense to put that in for the grant. So we've kind of put a timetable together. We're meeting next on July 1. So we're making sure that we have a meeting every month through the summer and into the early fall to get feedback and proposals from the different departments. The chair, Dave Blatt, is going to be reaching out to them and explaining to them what we're doing. And by the end of the summer, we're hoping to be picking and choosing the projects that will be part of the next round so that we can have all the data we need in place weeks before the deadline instead of 2 days before the deadline. Our outreach through Facebook is going well. The last post I saw was highlighting the police cruisers that we've contributed towards $5,000 each time. And I believe you're going to see a post soon with data as to what we have already saved since we installed the streetlights, the LED streetlights. The numbers are incredible, just in the short time that they've been in already. That's where we're at this point.
Excellent.
And we have 2 associate member seats still available.
Okay. The Master Plan Steering Committee met, and I was not at the meeting, and I have not gotten the minutes yet. So I don't know what happened, but they met. I'm sure it was good. This is not one that we have a liaison for, but the Personnel Committee has all 5 members have resigned. So that is currently a fully empty committee at this point. So again, if anybody is interested, I highly recommend filling out a volunteer form. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I do not know what the reason is. I have not heard anything other than just they all resigned after town meeting. And lastly, the school committee met. They reorganized, as we talked about already. Not much really changed in terms of their liaisons. And they really didn't go through too much more other than just sort of a general purpose start of the year meeting. So I think they'll get more into it a little bit later. And that's pretty much all I had for those. Topics for future meetings. We have a large list for the summer, other than obviously going over some type of a letter for Rep. Scarsdale. Any other topics that anyone's thought of in the last few weeks?
No new ones, but like you say, we've got an extensive list there.
We do.
I guess we'll count on you to
We'll start on it.
plug in the ones that we can intermingle into the meetings through the summer.
Yep, we're going to start on them in 2 weeks. Upcoming meetings, 6/27, 7/11, and then the potential ones with Rep. Scarsdale on the 12th or the 19th. With that, is there any final public comment from the public? Or one public? Is there any public comment from the committee? All right, I would happily entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is 8:01. That is a 1-hour meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and see you in 2 weeks.